In the spring of 2020, as protests against continued police killings of unarmed black men spread across every major city in America, the New York Times stands accused of taking sides against the protesters. If you're thinking that maybe they wrote an editorial or put together an article that took sides, you'd be wrong. Instead, the accusations stem from some of the headlines the Times staff have written. Here's some examples. If you look at these three headlines and you're not really into grammar, you might not see what the big deal is. By the end of this video, you'll fully understand. So here are the headlines. Minneapolis, a photographer was shot in the eye. Louisville, a reporter was hit by a pepper ball on live TV by an officer who appeared to be aiming at her. Washington, D.C., protesters struck a journalist with his own microphone. They seem like pretty clear headlines, right? What's at stake here is the use of the active voice. So let me explain. When you use the active voice, you clearly attribute action to a specific actor. So you say, this is the person who did it, and this is what they did. So here's an example. The professor spoke about active voice. So you know who's speaking, the professor, and you know what's happening. The professor is speaking. So we've got a clear agent, professor, and we've got a clear action, spoke. That one's in the past tense, but you can also be active in the present tense. The students watch the video. We know who's doing the action, the students, and we know what they're doing. They're watching the video. This contrasts with the passive voice. In the passive voice, we do not know who is doing the action. It's not clearly stated. No one is claiming the action in the sentence. So here's an example. Passive voice was spoken about. In this sentence, it's not clear who's speaking about the passive voice. It could be me. It could be the ceiling fan behind me. It could be a dog. We have no idea. The passive voice is just being talked about. So we don't have an actor. We don't have an agent. Sometimes with passive voice, we will include an actor, but it'll be later in the sentence. So it will de-emphasize the action. The actor. The video was watched by the students. So we could have this sentence either way. The video was watched, or the video was watched by the students. In the latter version, we definitely know who is watching, but we've de-emphasized their role. They are passive in the process. So instead of the students watch the video was watched by the students. We've taken the students out of this. So how does this apply to the New York Times example? By using the passive voice in certain headlines, they're able to de-emphasize the actors. And that can be a good thing. Sometimes we want to avoid attributing responsibility, right? If you fail to complete something, you might want to tell your boss, well, the project wasn't completed rather than I didn't do it. But in this case, there might be a political statement underlying this decision. Because the active voice attributes or states agency clearly when it is used to describe actions by protesters, that suggests the protesters are responsible. However, if passive voice, which omits, de-emphasizes, or just implies agency, is then used to describe actions by the police, that suggests they're not responsible for the actions, or it makes it unclear who is responsible for the actions. So here's an example. A photographer was shot in the eye. Who did that? Who shot the photographer in the eye? If we've been following events, we know police officer shot the photographer in the eye. By using this passive voice then, the author is avoiding attributing agency. By using the active voice, the police shot a protester in the eye, we attribute agency. And in this situation, we avoid making a political statement on behalf of the police by refusing to attribute agency to them for an action they've committed. So I hope this helps clarify the difference between the active and the passive voice, and also gives you a little bit of insight into the challenges faced by headline writers at newspapers like the New York Times. Thanks for watching.